Hi, welcome to the Jean Hart Astrology Hour with Terry Canady and Jean Hart.
Yeah, good to be here.
We're back.
Yeah, we are.
Third show, and we're on a roll.
We are.
Rolling.
It's going to be a good one. And we got our engineer back, and we're just having all kinds of fun.
We got our engineer front as well.
And he's got our back. That's
definitely got our back.
Yeah.
You know, this week was an amazing week. I've just been watching this ISIS thing and this thing that's been going on in Iraq and Iran and Syria, and such a burden to my heart until I ran across this article that was written by Bob Flanagan from the World News Daily Report.
Yeah.
And the title of it is ISIS Fighter Converts to Christianity After Allah Refuses Him Entrance to the Gates of Heaven. Now,
oh my gosh.
Can you imagine Allah refusing an ISIS fighter?
Well, what happened?
Let me read this story to you. It's amazing.
Okay.
An ISIS jihadist has recently converted to Christianity after being left for dead near the eastern border of Syria, where he was finally rescued by Christian missionaries from the region, reports the Alpo Herald this morning. I imagine that's a Iraqi newspaper.
Might be.
The man that has miraculously survived multiple gunshot wounds after an altercation between ISIS and Syrian army forces was rescued by members of the Saint Dominican Catholic... Oh, here you go, Terry. You're going to have to help me with these words. Presbytery of Ayasha, hours after the conflict had erupted. The members of the Christian organization wanted to give the man a proper Christian burial and carried him over 26 kilometers before the man miraculously came back to life, as he was believed to have died from his wounds. The man was believed to be dead for hours before he suddenly came back to life, recalls the priest Herman Groschelin. This priest discovered the body of this young man, and as the man came back to his senses, he reported the priest Herman Groschelin the visions he had while in the afterlife, an event that profoundly changed the 32-year-old jihadist and eventually led to his conversion to Christianity days later. He told me that he was always taught that to die as a martyr would open him the gates of Jannah, or gates of heaven, recalled the priest. Yet as he had started to ascend towards the light of the heavens, devilish entities, or genus, he called them, appeared and led him to the fiery pits of hell. There he had to relive all the pain he had inflicted upon others, and every death he had caused throughout his entire life. He even had to relive the decapitations of his victims through their own eyes. Images the jihadist claims will haunt him for the rest of his life, admits the priest. Then Allah or God spoke unto him and told him that he had failed miserably as a human soul, that he would be banned from the gates of heaven if he chose to die, but that if he chose to live again, he would have another chance to repent of his sins and walk along God's path once again. The young man claims he was brought back to life moments later and eventually converted to Christianity days later, believing he had been misled throughout his religious life upon the worship of Allah. The young man, whose wounds have surprisingly healed in a very short time, has chosen to live amongst the members of the Catholic Church who rescued him from the desert, and hopes his story will help other ISIS fighters change their ways and convert to the one and only true God, the priest told local reporters. That story just blew my mind.
Well, so I missed that story. When was it published?
February 27th.
Okay. Wow.
2015. Excuse me, February 3rd, 2015.
Been out 2 or 3
Bob
weeks.
Flanagan. I've heard his name before somewhere.
Yeah.
But, you know, near-death experiences have always fascinated me. I mean, my most favorite book ever is Life Between Life by Joel Whitton. He's got a PhD in psychology, and he regressed. Well, you know, I don't believe in hypnotism. I think it's wrong to do that kind of thing, but that's what he did in his research and he would hypnotize people back into life between life, what they were going through between each life. And
well, the thing about hypnotism is you don't want to necessarily put yourself in the hands of the consciousness of another person who is the hypnotist. But a lot of wonderful things have been done as a result of hypnotism. We don't have to necessarily personally endorse it, right?
Absolutely, and it is true that you give power to that person who is hypnotizing you. And a good example of that is I had a friend who was literally a sheep herder. He took care of sheep. He was kind of a monk type person.
Yeah.
He went to a hypnotist in Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana. Yes, that's right. We're from Montana, folks. There's a hypnotist.
Yeah, we're looking out the window at mountains, man.
No, it's gorgeous.
This is great.
So he goes to this hypnotist because he was having these reoccurring dreams and he wanted to get to the bottom of them. So the hypnotist took him back and they took care of the dreams. But when he left that office, the next few days, he noticed that he was having some visions of things that he'd never had visions of before.
Oh, really?
And one of those particular visions happened to be, and we're talking about a monk here, a very pure, devoted monk. So the visions he was having were pornography.
Oh,
and so it was a strong standout. So he went back to the hypnotist and he said, what in the heck is going on? And the hypnotist did confess that he was into that kind of thing. So it's proof.
You got a little bit of his consciousness.
Yeah. Because he gave it to him, because you have to completely surrender yourself to the person that is hypnotizing to you. So I don't recommend that you do that, even though Joel Witten has a PhD in psychology and has a remarkable log of what he has done with the people as they came in. There's also another great book. I mean, this is my second all-time favorite on near-death experience, and that's called Return from Tomorrow by George Ritchie. He's an MD. He had a near-death experience. Did you read this book ever?
I did not. No.
I think it's been... he had a near-death experience when he was young, and I think he was dead for 9 minutes. And then he came back, and his story is here, but he became a PhD in psychology because it just totally changed his life as well.
Well, the experience I've had with near-death experience people is Daniel Brinkley. I interviewed him I did 3 cable access shows back in the Minneapolis area with him. So, and I read his book, and so had a chance to get to know him and find out. I mean, this guy went through some amazing trials.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Didn't he write a book?
Yeah, he wrote 2 or 3.
What's the good one? Did you read them or?
Yeah, I want to say Saved by the Light. Daniel Brinkley, though, Dannion, Brinkley. You can find him on Amazon.
It's pretty well known, I think.
Yeah.
But listen, all of us have had lives before. I mean, that's just kind of profound that you run into that type of subject matter when you get into near-death experiences. Like you just go back and stand before remember our first show, we talked about the 7 people, the Lords of Karma.
Right.
And, they go back and they review different lives, and it's just fascinating to me.
And we mentioned that Albert Brooks movie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's great. If you want, level 1 understanding of what goes on, it's a pretty good movie.
What's the name of that movie again? Defending Your Life.
Defending Your Life.
Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep.
Meryl
I
Streep.
love her. Yeah. She's awesome.
So, how are you tying this ISIS thing in with our subject matter today? Then you led off with that.
You think about it. I mean, we've talked about this already a little bit, but in a way, near-death experiences take you out of your body and put you in front of your God, your Lords of Karma, your, near-death experiences are eye-openers. Everyone that I know that's had one comes back a changed person, and the choices that they make are different because they remember. I think what that near-death does is it causes your subconscious to open up, and the memory is given to you of whatever it is that you need to remember, so you do better.
Well, even Daniel Brinkley, he said that you imagine the worst kid on the playground. Mm-hmm. I was worse than that.
Oh.
And so he came back absolutely loving. When I first met him, he gave me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek.
Wow.
I mean, this guy totally changed. So it'll do it.
What was that movie? Flatliners? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Kevin Bacon and a bunch of stars in it. I think the star of 24.
They got right to where their heart just leveled out, right?
Medical students who were experimenting with stopping the heart.
What did they discover?
That the first thing that they thought of was the worst thing that they had done while they were alive. And so when they came back into their bodies again after they brought their hearts, made them alive again. They wanted to go resolve whatever that issue was. So, for instance, one of them used to be a bully on the playground when he was a kid. So he went and found the little girl that he picked on and gave her flowers and love and please forgive me.
Oh my gosh!
So,
but that blew her away.
And she did forgive him, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating. We should pick another movie and get people, in that direction. Flatliners, we've got Defending Your Life, Flatliners, and Ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is a true story.
Yeah.
I've seen that movie so many times, but
Patrick Swayze.
they hang around you until they're sure that you can go on.
Yes.
And then they'll go with the light. But everybody gets that choice to go with the light once they get to the other side. And a lot of people choose not to.
Yeah.
Some people, just want to hang out with their families, and then there you go. You get the ghost in the house. It's kind of
That's right. And just
scary.
think, some of these poor souls, they've been hanging around a house for years and years and years. I mean, really.
Well, there's no
It's
time
kinda
and
sad.
space on the other side. Think about it.
Yeah.
So they don't know they're passing time. We only think of it in time.
Sometimes they don't even know they've passed.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And all of these types of subjects are covered in these books. I was telling you about Life Between Life, Joel Winton, and Return from Tomorrow, George Ritchie. Oh my gosh, it's such a fascinating subject. And when you're doing your astrology, you can sort of tune in to why you have the habit patterns that you have now, because history repeats itself over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Different, as we talked about before, different place,
Right.
different face. But the astrology just shows the that thing that you keep doing. And especially look in your chart for that real negative thing you keep doing and see if you can't master it, because in the negative is where you can find your gold nugget. In the pain, gold nugget.
How do people find that big negative then in their chart? How does it stand out to them?
Well, first of all, they consult their local astrologer.
In Montana.
In Montana.
Matters not where you live.
That's right.
How do they reach you?
They can call me at 406-599-3934. If you text me, I'll get it faster.
Okay.
Or you can email me at GeneAstrology@GeneHart.com. That's Gene, Jean, at astrologygenehart.com. And that's our first commercial for the show. We have a guest. Who might even have some more things to say about what we're talking about.
Good.
And he's calling from the farmlands of Iowa, the cornfields of Iowa.
Iowa, that's where I'm from.
I know. Oh, that's true.
Born in Ames, raised in Des Moines.
All these farmer boys.
Yeah.
I don't think his name is Arthur Thumb, and I don't necessarily think he's from Iowa. He
Yeah, I
just
don't think
ended
so.
up there in a cornfield. Arthur?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Arthur.
Hi, Terry.
Hi.
Gene. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, we would like your 2 cents on what we've just been talking about.
Oh, this is great stuff. I got to tell you, this is great stuff. This had interested me for, many years. The subjects of near-death experiences. My sister was kind of into this, so I kind of grew up with it, especially in, I would say, right around the late 1970s and early 80s. She was really kind of getting into, some of the things that they could get into. She took more of a psychic direction and ended up in that, but I was just kind of watching her from the periphery, and it was very interesting. But our family, we had all sorts of interesting experiences. I used to have visions that were related to prophetic things that would happen. And
Well, give us some substance. Tell
getting
us.
these kind of things were like, whoa, what is going on? I had no clue what was happening. I was wondering why I was kind of receiving these kind of things, not so much from a prophecy as it was dreams, or I would actually see something. I was staying overnight at her house one time, and I had actually had this vision of tanks rolling across some ground, and I knew enough about military to know that these were Chinese tanks.
Did you say tanks?
I got interested in the subject of prophecy and the near-death things, and started to study, and very familiar with Daniel Brinkley's book, and I also agree that is an excellent book, Saved by the Light, and it's all his stories about the reincarnation. And
Right.
I've had the opportunity to actually meet Daniel too, and he's quite a character.
He
He's
is.
a great guy.
I know. What was it you were saying? You were saying you had a vision of tanks, Chinese tanks rolling across the ground?
Yeah, imagine this. I had no clue. I'm a computer technician by trade. I guess
Right.
I've been doing this for many years, an analyst. And so to have these kind of things happen in my life was entirely different than what you would expect. You know, you don't see these kind of things. So I had to try to sort some of this out as to why these things were happening. So
Right.
it was a very clear vision. It was a very clear dream. It was, you know, at a point between waking and sleeping, you know how it is when we can do that. And a lot of times, I know a lot of folks will report that, you know, they either bring back information, you know, in these areas, kind of like that, what Joel Witten was talking about, life between life. You know, you're right on the periphery of that consciousness, and you can pull these things back. And that's when it happened. It was when I was waking up.
I see.
Very clear, very clear.
You know, they say actually when you're
I had to try to make some
sleeping.
sense out of these things. So I started studying Nostradamus and the prophecies, and was very interested in that. And that was really kind of what took me on my direction for spiritual path.
Yeah. What was it you were saying, Gene?
They say that when you wake up from a dream, like right in that first second, you're still in between the two worlds. And so if you can kind of pay attention to what's around you and what information you're bringing in that, you know, prophecy, usually. Prophecy for yourself for the day ahead, or, you know, what your test in life might be for that day. I mean, it's kind of amazing. Sometimes people who aren't really spiritually motivated too much will find that when they come back in their body, sometimes they get stuck. And you get that feeling right before you wake up that you can't move. Have you ever had a dream like that?
I don't think
Where
so.
you're just, I haven't, but I've heard many people talking about where they're in their body. They can't get back into their body. Their body won't move, and they're kind of stuck outside of their body.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a paralyzing effect. Do you know about that, Arthur?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, I've had similar experiences, but not so much that I couldn't get back in again. Just a sense like, ooh, it's a little difficult, but you know, that would only last a brief second or two. But I can relate to what you're saying for sure. Yeah. So we also at this same time all this was happening, we started diving into, you know, some of the things that would happen, you know, ghosts and, you know, what happens with people that pass from the screen of life and things like this. So it was this immersion in all of these topics, you know, that were related to, you know, past lives, near-death experiences, you know, ghosts, these kind of things. And this was going on for quite a few years. It was around I guess it was mid-'80s when this was occurring. So it was some time ago. But that set the stage for, you know, moving forward from that point on. And it hasn't stopped since.
Yeah. Well, things were getting all kind of spiritual back in the 70s. And
those were the hippie days.
Oh, the hippie days.
For sure, dude. I mean, yeah, totally. It's the way it is.
Did you have an afro, Arthur?
No, I did, but my hair was down to my shoulders. I got to tell you that. I did have that issue.
I can see it. Anyway, yeah, well, you know, and those were the days when the astrology, you could probably explain this, Gene, the astrology was such so that, you know, you had these, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and all that sort of stuff going on.
And it is the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, I mean, and it was very popular. It was top 40.
You brought that up. I mean, Aquarius, when you think about Aquarius, it rules community, it rules, you know, new age, it rules future-oriented. And, you know, there's this, you talk about near-death experience. There's this Wonder Man of Europe. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. His name is Saint Germain. But there's a book called Unveiled Mysteries. I don't know if that's the one that describes him. But he's this guy that would reincarnate for the heck of it. Several you know, I mean, like he was like 800.
For the heck of it. I like that.
He was like 1,000 years old, and he did all these miracle things.
Well, as the Wonder Man of Europe, he actually was around for over 100 years, between 100 and 200 years, but he always looked to be about 40 years old.
Right. That's it. I know there's a story to him, but he's considered the master of the Aquarian Age, the one who would bring in the Aquarian Age and change the way people think. And he was a great alchemist. He is a great alchemist, and alchemy was his thing. So going from Pisces to Aquarius, that's quite a transition. You're going from total sensitivity to total, you know, get out there and conquer worlds, have new goals, have new vision, have new ways of doing things, new age technology. Pisces was very spiritual and quiet, which is great. But taking the spiritual and quiet and putting it into an Aquarian, frame.
Well, how do we explain to people how Saint Germain has taken over the next 2,000-year cycle from Jesus? Jesus held the balance for us for the
Piscean age.
For the Piscean age.
And I think everybody thinks he was a Pisces too, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any record that shows that, although I do believe that he lived beyond that crucifixion. But passing the torch, I don't know. I think it's kind of like when you give a job to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to show them how to do it, and then you let them have at it.
And then it's another 2,000-year cycle.
Right.
And somebody else picks up the torch.
And there are astrological reasons for those cycles, and there's precession of the equinoxes. There is, mathematical equations in physics. 1 times 1 times 1 always equals 1. So
Right.
Every number in the sky is incredibly important and has a message in it. So they say the age of Aquarius takes a certain amount of time to come in from Pisces to Aquarius. It's a movement.
There's an overlap, sort of, right? Or,
Yeah, well, it's we always say we're headed for the age of Aquarius, but we're actually, I believe, there.
I think we're in it, yeah.
We're in what's called the dark cycle of the Kali Yuga right now, which is the return of mankind's karma, so to speak. The Eastern tradition teaches this. Return of mankind's karma from 2015 to 2025 is the last of it. It's kind of like called the dragon's tail, and it's smacking a lot of us in the face right now because the energy is so intense. I mean, everybody's individual lives, everybody I talk to is really struggling and trying to find that joy, trying to get back to that good space, but it seems like there's just so much on them and they don't know what it is or why. I actually got a client who called today and said, "Help, what is going on in my stars?" Well, the dark cycle of the Kali Yuga is, again, mankind's returning karma. What is karma? Karma is debts that we owe. It's like in your checking account, you got a debit and a credit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
And every jot and tittle has to be balanced by you.
Yeah. So you can't let somebody else, you can't blame anything on anybody else. But the dark cycle of the Kali Yuga, you might look it up, Google it. It's going to last till 2025. So the things that we see on this planet might be pretty intense. And so that's why it is wise to keep up on your astrology and know where you stand today and tomorrow as these things descend, as you see the world do the things that it's doing. How about that senator who sent that letter to Iran? I love it. What a freedom fighter.
Yeah,
I mean, I look at him and I'm like, oh my God, he's been in the Senate for 2 months and he's already made such a statement.
Is that letter where they're apprised of our constitutional system and how
Tom Cotton, I think is his name.
Is it? Okay.
Did you hear about that, Arthur?
No, I haven't heard about that specific story, but everything that you're saying is just, it's absolutely ringing true. Everybody's getting these wake-up calls. They feel the need to reach out. They feel the need to, over the place, to state what they have to, and they know that there's something more. They know that there's some spiritual direction. I'm seeing that all over the place, and this is just another example of it.
And they're starved for truth. They're hungry for truth. The world just wants truth, but nobody's got the guts to stand up and give the truth. That's the catch-22, because usually when one person does, they get 10 stones, thrown at them, even though they are embodying the truth. So
one of the things that I was pursuing that was interesting was what is making things go on. When I got my spiritual wake up call, as some people do with their near death experiences, like Daniel did, you want to find out what is happening, what does it all mean, where do you fit in the scheme of things, what's happening, and that was kind of the driving motivation for me. I wanted to find out what was really going on. And I had mentioned one thing about my sister who ended up moving in a psychic direction. I knew that wasn't the right direction because it didn't ring true.
Right.
There were error involved in it, and that became obvious as time went on that wasn't where the truth was.
Error? Did you say error?
That truth was important, and that we had to find out what it was. So that was actually the driving motivator for me to actually pursue the understanding. I wanted to know what was prophecy. Why did I have that dream about the tanks? What's going on? What happens with near-death experiences? And I needed to get those answers.
So you say that you told your sister that there was error in her going to the psychic level. Is that or?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Yeah, there was a period of time prior to really diving into the depths of this, and I mean this was years ago, when I had a situation that almost ended up in a possession. So some of these things that they talk about possessions and stuff, I can absolutely witness to you that stuff is true.
Well, Whoopi
So I
Goldberg.
found myself in a very dangerous situation, and it was because of something that she had said and guidance and direction that I had received from that, and I knew for a fact that it was not the right level. So talk about getting a lesson hard and fast. That happened, and I told her about it. I said, this is not the right direction. You're not getting the truth in this. And of course, a lot of times, I found that many psychics at that time were involved because it supports their ego. They feel that they're doing a service for the community, but they don't realize there's error involved. So
Well,
what I was looking
they're
for
tying
was the
into
truth, truth.
they're tying into the moon. And the moon is the emotional influence upon us. It pulls on our thoughts, and so they get a feeling. And the feeling, of course, is like the ocean, the 7 oceans, pretty powerful, but the ocean has a lot of debris inside of it, You don't necessarily know if what you feel is what's really...
That's a way of putting it. A lot of debris in it, that's for sure.
I know.
Look at those, all the foam.
There was a lot of debris floating around in those days, that's for sure.
A lot of foam in the ocean, whatever.
Yeah, you got a couple of continents down there at the bottom, too.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And how did they get there? Emotional decadence, emotional living, everything comes through the emotional of the astral body.
Oh.
So the moon...
But what I found out about all this, Gina Terry, is that when you do pursue it, you'll get the truth if you really do desire it. I mean, if you put that consciousness out there, and I'll talk like that, in the new direction, the new consciousness that we're moving in, and everybody is. If you put that intention out there and you say, look, I really want to know what's going on. I want to know why. I want to know how. You'll get the answers. If you stop and listen, they will be made known to you.
That wonderful...
And I can absolutely tell you that, that's an exciting proposition when you decide enough is enough. I want to know what's going on.
Right.
Life is a chess game, I tell you, and the moves that you make when the dark cycle of the Kali Yuga is going on is incredibly important. So, I mean, you're accountable for the now. I mean, I think about what that ISIS guy went through when he went to his near-death experience. I mean, Allah said, no, you can't come in, because you got to go back and you got to take care of business, clean it up. So living in the now and dealing with what is your decision that is upon your plate right now? What mood can you choose to embrace? What are you choosing right as we speak? You're making a grade on your report card.
And the big obvious thing to me is the way these ISIS people conduct themselves. It has nothing to do with. Where is God in the picture? God is love, and what they do isn't love. God is hope, and God is all things light and good. And God doesn't.
I think that we're encountering absolute evil.
Well, it appears that way.
I mean, absolute evil. There is no, it's black. There's no white in it at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I read this great book a long time ago called Fallen Ones Among Us by Elizabeth Clare Prophet.
Yeah.
Is that the name of Fallen Ones Among Us? I think that's what it is. Oh, my God. Got to get your hands on this book because it exposes absolute evil through terrorists, through form that it shows itself. And there's a lot of people want to think that there's no such thing as evil on the planet. They get into that ooey gooey, oh, if you knew better, you would do better. Que sera, sera.
Yeah, and everybody's got some good in
them. Let's just, But this is a wake-up call to me,
Yeah.
It just petrifies me to think of being in the presence of ISIS, and how these youth can run and join their forces. I don't get that.
Yeah.
Why do they want to be evil? Go ahead.
I would, to your point, Gene, I was listening to one guy that was actually talking about ISIS being kind of like a branding, kind of like an icon, because they carries that feeling or that vibration
of absolute evil.
Yeah. Of absolute evil.
Yeah, of evil.
It's attractive. I have a relative who actually read the Book of Satan. I didn't even know there was a Book of Satan.
Oh man!
Oh
well,
my
the Satanic
God!
Bible, you mean?
Yeah, it's like the Satan bot.
Yeah. I think I've got a copy of it. I've got it in tinfoil. Well, I remember hearing that years and years ago. If you got something that's got a lot of evil in it and you want to have it on your shelves, put some tinfoil around it, and it will contain the negative energy.
Yeah.
So you can have it for research if you need it. But yeah, it's heavy duty. It's like everything's backwards. I mean, they've got the Lord's Prayer, which they say backwards, and they've got, all this backward masking and the backward lyrics to the music and the, and
You
all
got
that.
this skill with doing it backwards. Come on, show us.
I better not. I might end up saying something.
Just a little bit. Give us a
Oh,
little.
well, I've played around with tape recorders and I've done a lot of editing, and so I've gotten used to being able to. And then all of a sudden, and then you get the point where you're going to cut the tape, and you've done some of that, Arthur, have you?
Oh yeah, actually, I found out about reverse speech. Have either of you heard about reverse speech?
No.
No, I don't think that term. How about you, Stephen?
David Oates is a gentleman that did research on reverse speech. I had the opportunity to actually talk to him, and they found out that if you take a tape recording, play it backwards at a slow speed of what's being said, you actually get images that the person is saying, and it comes out in English in reverse.
Well, that's pretty
So
far
there may
out.
be images like dream-type images, pretty typical symbolisms. And he's done a lot of research over a lot of years. It's fascinating.
Can you give us an example?
Yes. He actually gave the example that he had a hearing impediment. So as part of his therapy, he was to record his own voice and play it back. And when he did that, apparently his little child was walking into the room, babbling what appeared to be incoherently. He had stopped the tape, reversed the tape back slowly, and the little girl was heard saying clearly, distinctly, and I actually heard the tape, I go there. So she was actually saying that in reverse, even though forward it sounded like she was making unintelligible speech.
She was saying, I go there?
I go there.
Huh.
And she was moving into the room where he was. And so he has done work where he's actually reversed speech on presidents, all sorts of public figures, and fascinating work.
Oh, in other words, take the recording of what they're saying, like a senator stands up and gives a speech or something like that, and then play it backwards and find out what he really means.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, he's found some real wild stuff. That's
Oh
exactly
my
right.
gosh.
That would be scary to do that with.
It's like far out, man.
It is far out. Oh my God. I knew you would come up with something far out if I had you on the show tonight.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
Wow, that is fascinating. Let's do a commercial and we'll come right back to Arthur.
Okay.
I'm thinking the commercial should be
me?
Should be the CD that you.
Oh. Well, Gene, for my commercial, I don't have any copy to read, but I do have a CD that is available. It's called "Give Me Liberty," and it's kind of a patriotic sort of a thing. And I've recently converted it from, it used to be available as a cassette, and now it's available as a CD. And
Cassettes, those are like pretty ancient, aren't they?
Cassettes go
What
way
exactly
back.
is a cassette?
Like the Civil War,
Cassette. I've heard that word somewhere.
You don't see cassette players anymore, but I have the technology to convert them.
Is this
Anyway,
ancient new?
yeah, it's a good album. And so anyway, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, you can reach me through my email. Is the best way to do it right now. Just Terry Canady, TerryCanady @gmail.com.
That's Terry, Terry, Canady, Canady @gmail.com.
Yeah.
You got to get a CD. You've got to hear this man sing. We're working on doing a jingle for our show. Hopefully, we'll get this voice exposed to the world that needs to hear it.
Yeah, last week we sang Dry Bones and them bones and bones and
Bones
dry
and bones.
bones. And that's all you get this week. So
It's because we had a doctor on last week.
yeah, we'll do more. But anyway, well, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, so life being a chess game, is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And living in the now, which is so important. And I think that would resolve all psychological problems if everybody lived in the now and didn't worry about the past because the past is prologue, and didn't be concerned about the future so much because it's not here yet. But the now you're accountable for, right here, right now. What's your mood? You know? How you feel? Moon's in Sagittarius tonight, so it could tend to exaggerate, expand. Procrastination energy can slip through the pipeline of Sagittarius type stuff, but it's a great time to learn something new. It's a great time to look at philosophies, belief systems. It's a great time to waste time.
Well, how about Arthur there? Arthur, you got any questions for Jean regarding your astrology and things that are going on in your world? And
I have your chart up here right now. I'm not going to tell
Wow,
that.
boy, she's got everything at her fingertips,
she's
Terry.
good. I know.
I'm not going to tell them your time, date, or place of birth. I'm going to keep that secret unless you would like me to tell the world.
Actually, let's keep it secret.
All right.
Okay.
But it is true. You can take a time, a date, and a place of birth and have a whole story before you. So, Arthur, you're not going to get away with anything. I know it all.
Yeah. I've dabbled a little bit, Jean, in some astrology. I've spent some time actually taking classes from Jean. Everybody, do it. It's great. She knows her stuff. Good stuff.
Oh, that was a little plug. Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
Online class or when you were out here in Montana or what?
No, actually online. Yeah,
Okay.
we did it all through Skype, the miracle of technology. Thank you, Saint Germain, and
No,
all
no,
the
no,
others
no,
that
no.
bring those gifts to us.
It was GoToMeeting because I only do classes on GoToMeeting.
Okay, go to meeting. We switch to go to
We
meeting.
got to give a plug for GoToMeeting.
Oh yeah.
They're great. You can have 25 kids in one class, and you can see every one of their faces. Sometimes kids, well, I call them kids, but really they're like 30, 40, 50. 15.
So they've all got their little camera.
Some of them come out in their pajamas.
Yeah.
You know, they're just, it's hilarious.
Yeah, we can make faces at Jean, and she can make them back
It's
at us.
true. It's true.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It is.
I actually tried to do a class in my office where we had the GoToMeeting computer watching the class. How do I say this? That was a live class here.
Oh yeah.
And Arthur was on that. I don't know how that went.
Jean, thanks so much for having me on. This is really fun. I do want to let you know that as part of my spiritual path and growth and trying to search for the truth, we've tried to understand the reasons for prophecy. Why prophecy is given to us, what is happening, what is going on in the world. We're seeing events get worse and worse and worse. And so what we're doing is putting together a website, www.prophecyisgiven.com. We can go out there and get tools to be able to deal with all these events that are coming down in the world. And a little bit of an explanation of what's out there, why the things are the way they are, why things have gotten where they are, and some connections for good reading material and other sources out there. We're just in the process of building that out, so please come give us a visit. You'll be able to do that. That's www.prophecyisgiven.com.
Prophecyisgiven.com. Okay.
Wow,
Thank you.
That's an
Yeah.
impressive name.
Yeah.
Prophecy.com. Speaking of prophecy, that's something you can do with astrology. You can get into the stars and see what the cycles are that you can meet down the road. Even though you should be living in the now, you still need to kind of be aware of the fact that there are things coming up in your life, and your life is constantly changing. And the planets are aligned mathematically with you in mind, so you can chart your course and see the mood of the moment and do something about it before it becomes a moment that's out of control. And the reason I say that it's so important is because, again, we are in an intense time in the astrology of Earth and her evolutions from 2015 to 2025. So if we survive the next 10 years, we can survive anything. And I tell you, you got to have your compass. Astrology is your roadmap. It's your compass. It shows you what time the mood's coming in. You have free will choice to be or not to be. And that is the question, my friend. Are you going to make the right choice? How can you make the right choice if you don't even know what in the heck it is that's on you? So, that being
Gee, what
said,
do you see out there?
So what do we see in your chart? You mean?
Yeah, sure. Do you see anything exciting, adventurous?
Well, I think you're a drama king. You have a Leo ascendant, and what's really cool about your chart is that the biggest
A drama
There's no drama in my world,
king.
Gene.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
there's so much drama in your world. The Jupiter is in Leo right now in your 12th house, which tells me that you're going to be a very selfless man, that you want to give to people, that you just want to serve. And really, that's what all of us need to be doing down here. We need to be serving each other. Get over it. You don't have time to be mad at people or irritated by them. Move on. Serve them, especially those people you don't like. Serve them.
Wow. Gene, I just want a good slice of pizza.
That's all you want.
Well, maybe I can get our engineer to make one, and somehow we can fed it out to the cornfields of Iowa.
So you're in the cornfield. You got cornfield around you?
Oh, this is Iowa, Terry.
I know. There's a lot of cornfield out there.
Absolutely. Right now it's mud, but it will be very soon green with corn.
I see.
Hopefully it's not
The
GMO
beautiful
corn.
rolling hills of Iowa.
Hopefully it's not GMO corn.
Oh yeah.
Quite a bit of it is actually GMO, and there's quite a bit of that is people are just beginning to understand that there is an issue out here. But yes, a lot of it is GMO.
I have a great idea. Why don't you get a poster board and a stick and write on there, no GMO, and start picketing those cornfields. You know,
Yeah.
They say 90% of the corn that we're eating here in America is genetically modified, GMO.
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
I can't eat corn anymore, and I love corn on the cob. I was born and raised in Kansas City. Give me some corn and watermelon. I'm not going to
Most
eat it.
of the corn that's grown out here is actually for feed.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, feeding the
Feeding livestock.
livestock. I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, so we're eating the cows. They're eating genetically modified food, so we're getting secondhand plastic food. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Absolutely.
I guess I'm
Yep.
going to have to stop
There
it.
is kind of a raising of consciousness now in the area. We're starting to see a little bit more awareness this year than there was even last year. So, but not enough, not nearly enough. Everybody thinks it's still okay.
Well, you know, in
And
Europe, they have
heavy use
laws.
of pesticides and Roundup.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roundup. I just read about that a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, oh my God. So Roundup is why I'm sick all the time. No, I'm never sick, but
Well, there are some places that have taken like Monsanto to court. I want to say in Maui, I think there's a
Monsanto
lawsuit.
is the seeds. Tell us what Monsanto
Well,
is.
they genetically modify an organism, so they come up with a brand new seed, and then they patent it, and then if anybody uses it, you owe them a fee. But the problem is that this stuff filters over into the organic fields, and then the organic fields go GMO, and then they bring a suit against the people who are raising organic food. I mean, it's insidious. Talk about darkness. So we've got darkness everywhere on this planet right now. So I mean, ISIS is just it's just a tip of the iceberg, so to speak. And this genetically modified food is just
It's hurting
a part
people.
of it. Yeah.
It's hurting people. They can't think straight. I mean, I even read an article a couple of weeks ago in the realm of the Roundup that it causes autism.
Oh, really?
Autism. I mean, really messes with your brain.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah, they found out that actually if they spray Roundup on wheat prior to its being harvested, they get a higher yield. And so it's being used extensively in the U.S. wheat industry.
Oh, so that's why I'm hearing that wheat is not such a good thing to eat anymore.
Right. In fact, I heard a story about somebody from another country that came over and said, I don't have any problem with the wheat in my country. Every time I come to the United States, I have a problem. I get gluten allergies.
Well, I don't have that problem. I'm on gluten-free bread. I have been for about the last year. My husband thinks it's gross, but you know what?
What's it like? I don't think I've eaten any of it.
It keeps you from, I mean, seriously, that wheat, gluten, whatever it is, that the poison, the Roundup, whatever, it was giving me a stomach ache. When I started eating gluten-free and non-GMO, my stomach ache was gone. So I'm sorry, I'm sold. I'm from Missouri, the show me state. Show me, and I'll believe, and I'm a believer. Don't you touch that GMO, you people out there.
Yeah, yeah. It's people got to wake up.
Yeah, that's true. Wake up. They got to be educated. I mean, they're not going to tell you this. You got to find it. So do your research, and, your local media stations might not be telling you the truth.
Well, how do people learn more about
Remember,
this?
our show is about the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Right.
So look for the truth, because the truth is not going to be given to you right in the, right where where you expect it to be in the mass, whatever it is. It's hidden. It's secret. You got to look for it.
So you pray to be shown the truth? What's the best way to find the truth?
Prayer is probably the most powerful ammunition that you've got to get attunement, to get insight, to get back to innocence, which is where your inner senses are, so that you can perceive what you're dealing with. And they say the most important thing that we can all be about is figuring out how to discern spirits. And when I say discern spirits, back to, near-death experiences and ghosts, discerning spirits, who's the bad guy and who's the good guy? How often do you get involved with someone and find out later that they're the bad guy? And, if you back up the truck, there was that moment where you had that gut.
Yeah, that gut feeling. That's
it's all written on your inward parts. So if you're doing a lot of prayer work for the planet, first of all, everything on the planet, watch the news. Although the news, you can't believe it. You got
what you need to watch is enough of the news to know what to pray about.
Right.
And then don't watch any more than that. You can get the lead stories and turn off the rest of it.
Go after it, yeah. And then, of course, pray for your own ability to discern. And do it every day, because it's amazing where it'll take you. And, you talk about life being hard and heavy. If you invoke light, I don't know if you know what chakras are, but chakras.
Well, chakras are what? Light centers? You've got 7 major light centers in your body.
Yeah, and if you're invoking light into your body's your temple, your heart's your altar, that's where it is. It's not out in the brick building church. It's inside you. You're the church. So you're filling your body with the light, and as you fill it more and more, you get more and more innocence and purity, and you end up having, the answers.
And like we talked about last week when we had Dr. Karp on, if you kind of quiet your world a bit, you'll improve those listening skills. In other words, don't listen to so much music, good, bad, or otherwise. Just be quiet and have those meditative moments. I don't know. What other things can people do to become quiet and begin to hear the inner voice, which is the Christ consciousness, or the guardian angel that says...
Your higher self.
Your higher self says, watch out for this.
I think in the Bible, Moses had it. He dubbed it. He said that he was talking to that burning bush, and the burning bush said, "What's your name?" And he said,
"What's your name?" I like that.
He said, I am that I am. I am that I am. How many times do you say that in your day? I am Terry Canady. I am Jean Hart. I am that I am. When you qualify I am, if that is in fact the name of God, as Moses said it so clearly and elegantly, not quite like me.
Right.
If you're sitting around saying I'm sick, I'm poor, I have no money, I'm whatever.
Well, that's where positive affirmations come in. When you say I am well, you're not saying I am sick, because if you say I am sick, you're using the name and the power of God to invoke a condition of sickness.
Right.
And you don't want to do that anymore.
So that to me is another way of praying, is making positive affirmations.
So what you can do is you can say I am alert, awake, awake, and maybe all the right information can come to you.
And furthermore, your engineer might stop yawning.
Actually, I found with
he's not
some
yawning.
of the prophecy studies that the I am, that's the key. That's our link. That's our permission. That's our authority to be able to act as co-creators with God in the physical.
Right.
That's pretty intense sentence.
Name.
Wow. Well, I just, I think that it's a cool name. I am. I am that I am. I don't know what it is. But in the process of that, was it Pythagoras who developed the harmonics and sound, working with sound and the levels of sound, how sound influences matter. And in the beginning was the word, so to speak, biblically speaking.
Right.
Word. What is the word? The word is sound. And so if you say something and you release it from your mouth, you're actually influencing the atmosphere of energy that's around you, which actually astrology is the calculation of that energy that is around you.
Uh-huh.
And you can actually change the molecular structure of energy through sound. I mean, it's amazing. So it's just like a salesman. He goes and he sells you a car because he convinces you to buy the car by the way he says it, or he convinces you not to buy the car because the way he said it.
I see.
So he's he's literally influencing your mind and your actions, which you can do to yourself by, the right release of sound. So, and then, meditation. Meditation is the visualization of color, light, energy. And there are the different pastel colors like violet. Great colors too.
Well, violet is the highest frequency on the color spectrum. And
Right,
so when you invoke that violet frequency, that violet flame, violet ray, it's known by many, many names, you begin to, there's a transmutative effect that begins to happen to the negative things in your world, the stuff you want to get rid of.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something I've been experimenting with a lot, the color of violet and the violet ray, and I've been reading everything I could get my hands on. You can actually Google violet flame, and you'll get different teachings on it. But, if you close your eyes and if you look at the sun and then close your eyes, you'll see the color of violet. And I have this little fiat or this little chant that I do all the time, because I know I can touch God with the color of violet. I can actually touch God with the color of violet.
Well, that's great.
It makes me laugh. It brings joy to me. And it can do that to you as well. I start laughing. It just totally changes my whole countenance when I focus on this in my prayers. And I'll do it for a concentrated period of time. So this one little chant, what I'm doing is, it's an experiment. I'm a scientist in my own laboratory. My body's my temple. And I'm basically trying to see what it can do for me because I'm reading about it everywhere. It is the Aquarian color. It's the new age.
Well, what kind of things has it done for you? What's some of your
let me do the
testimonials?
chant first.
Okay.
It's a chant, a mantra. The Eastern people call it mantras. The pretty neat stuff. So with all the visualization that I can muster, I try to focus completely. This is all I see is the color violet. And I'll say something like, I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And I'll do it really fast. I start out really slow, like a train, literally. I'll start out slow, and I'll get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until I'm the speed of light. I am a being of violet fire and the purity God desires. Pretty fast, huh?
Yeah, that's moving.
And I'm not kidding what it does. It's like drinking a bottle of wine, although I haven't drank wine in, I don't even know whatever.
Well, I quit a long time ago. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I did. I was playing the nightclub circuit, but one day I just decided to quit.
This violet flame, though, it's an elixir of light. It is the holy grail. You've got to try it. Just take that one little chant. Become this scientist in your own laboratory. Go off and do it. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And, over and over and over again. And do it with meaning. Do it with full visualization. Do it with love. And so in the realm of love, you got to think about who's your favorite angel?
My favorite angel? No, you're just saying that. Yeah, okay.
Or your favorite saint or your favorite something and visualize that and send the love while you're saying it. Like, let's say Archangel Michael. He's my hero. He saved my life 7,000 times on a daily basis because I'm always doing something that's causing me to just about lose my life.
So what do? You visualize Archangel Michael while you're saying the mantra.
I feel the love that I have for Archangel Michael, the gratitude for saving my petally life. I don't know why he does it, but he does it.
Must be something redeeming in you, Jean.
There's got to be something. Anyway,
how about you, Arthur? Are you familiar with that mantra and have you used it?
Yes, very much so. In fact, I've been doing the violet flame for years and years and years, and I've had many experiences invoking that. In fact, a lot of times we'll use mantras from all sorts of different religions, and they too also will invoke the violet flame.
Ah, I see.
Right. It's the key to the turning around of prophecy.
You know what I think it is? I think it is the true Aquarian age. I mean, because, everybody's discovering it. I mean, I just happened into it some years back, and I've been playing with it for a long, long time. So, again, I'm from the Show Me State. I started working with it, and it's changed my life. It's allowed me to be more loving and kind. It's, believe it or not, except for Tatarian moments when...
Well, she used to call me a brat. She called me a brat just the other day.
And now I got the brat brothers. I got my husband and I got Terry.
Yeah.
The brat brothers.
But it's an endearing term. I know that. And we both spent time in the Missouri state. And I started entertaining in Kansas City. So we're tied together at the Kansas City hip, so to speak.
Oh, we are. And we actually both ate at the same steakhouse.
I know.
What was that place?
Down there in the stockyards.
Yeah,
I used to go there on a Sunday afternoon. When I
Great
didn't
steak.
have to entertain. I'm entertaining 6 nights a week, 4 hours a night, talking and singing and yakking it up with people. And all I wanted to do was be quiet on Sunday. So I'd go down to this steakhouse. I'd get me a Sunday paper, and I'd go in there and I'd eat. And I wouldn't talk. And maybe I'd go to a movie later in the day, and I wouldn't talk to a soul all day long. And now it's interesting because the alchemy of what was going on was that I was rebuilding or regenerating my energy to prepare for the next week. I mean, It's amazing I could do it in a day, but that's what I was doing without realizing it.
Well, and, I think I vaguely remember this was like 30, 40 years ago, walking in to the Stockyard restaurant and seeing this strange guy in the corner not talking to anybody. I was with my dad. My dad used to take me there for steak all the time.
Yeah.
White tablecloth. I love that place. Oh,
I got a couple of years on you, though. You were just a baby girl, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's a powerful mantra. It's the violet flame. Yeah, I've been familiar with it for years myself, and it works. I'll tell you, folks, if you want to give it a try, just try that one little mantra. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. And that's all you have to say. And do it for 5 minutes and see how your world changes.
You can feel it. It's like electrical. It's like amazing. And when I say electrical, this is the age of Aquarius. Aquarius is ruled by the planet Uranus. I don't like the name of that planet, but Pythagoras had another name for it.
What did he call it?
He called it Electra. And it is. It's full of electricity. It stimulates, it electrifies, it brings the joy, it brings the surprises. And so since the violet flame is supposedly the new age Aquarian, what is it? What's the word I want? Come on.
Well,
Fill in elixir. It's
Yeah.
just the most amazing thing ever. It's very Uranian, and you'll be amazed at what it does to you when you experiment with it.
so Arthur,
Try it for 6 months every day and see who you are. Look back on your 6 months and go, who was that?
Who was that masked man? That's the old Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Arthur, what kinds of things would you have to tell our listeners about the violet flame? I mean, just as an introductory sort of a thing. What would you have to say?
Sure. The science of sound, like you've all been talking about, including some of the work by Emoto. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy, Masaru Emoto. He found out that by using the science of sound, invoking the violet flame, that you can actually change matter. And so he would go ahead and impart that sound on water and then freeze it and photograph the crystals. And you can see the differences in the molecular structure of the crystals. So if you need some proof, check that out. It's good stuff.
Oh, you can Google it, and they'll show you those crystals, those water crystals. In fact, you can do that with music. You can play certain high pieces of music like Beethoven's 9 symphonies or Mozart's stuff, masses, and literally plants will grow.
They'll flourish better.
They'll flourish, and the water, if you were to put it under a microscope, you could see it would be making beautiful images as the music is played. If you play really hardcore music, like something like by Led Zeppelin, or I don't know if any of you remember that guy. What are the new bands nowadays that are just really loud and really kind of distorted music?
Well, I don't know. I'm not familiar with a lot of the new musicians. But,
Well, anyway, the really loud, distorted music that is in a syncopated beat, which is a beat that's different than your heartbeat.
Yeah, most of the rap and heavy metal music nowadays is very destructive.
Yeah,
like that.
But it's amazing. Under the microscope, you can see literally the images of the water will become jagged. They will become very odd shaped, very distorted. But when you play things like Beethoven's Ninth, seriously, or Beethoven's Seventh,
then they're like perfect geometric,
beautiful geometric.
Yeah.
It's like Pythagoras said. I mean, music is math. Math is music. Whatever.
Yeah, apparently there was a polluted a lake over in Japan, and as part of studies, Masaru Emoto had the folks that lived around the lake pray for the clearing of that lake. And so they were sending their intention, they were sending their prayers directly at the lake, and it did clear the pollution from the lake.
Oh, I see.
Amazing. Yeah, and Violet Flame will clear the pollution from your body. I mean, all of us should be sort of quarantined in a way because we have anger, we have emotions that cause us to do things we wouldn't do in a more sane moment. If you do Violet Flame, I mean, that cleans it out of you. And literally, you're getting your control back. You make karma when you get angry. In fact, it's probably one of the greatest ways to make karma is to get mad at someone. No matter what they do to you, just love them unconditionally.
And a good visualization is if you had a bag of marbles and you poured molasses in there, you can imagine the marbles aren't moving around very easily. You put Violet Flame to it, and it consumes the molasses so that there's space in between them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Did you try that?
No, no, I haven't tried that. But that's a visualization, Gene. A visualization. But it does sound like something I might try. I'll try it.
You're making me hungry. I want some pancakes now.
I'll try it and put it on. And we'll upload it to
Make sure they're non-GMO pancakes if we're going to do them.
Yeah, exactly, non-GMO.
Yeah.
Well, Arthur and Terry, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I think we're going to wrap it up, and I just want to let you know that next week we're going to be talking about that chocolate we promised you, Kuan Yin, and we'll get a little bit more into chakras. Let's go back to some of those lost continents, such as the land of Mu. Let's go back and see if we can bring some of that history forward, because history repeats itself over and over again. Different face, different place, same energy that you got to balance. Because life on Earth is about balancing karma, and this is a schoolroom, and you cannot graduate until you take care of business. So you might as well face it, and we'll try to help you with that. We're here to make you laugh. We're here to serve, and we want you to come back and hear our radio show. What do you think, Terry?
I think that's good. And I want to say thanks again also to Arthur. Thanks for being on, Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur.
Oh, guys, thanks so much. I really enjoyed myself, and I'm a big fan of Kuan Yin, too, so I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say.
All righty. Well, God bless everyone. We'll talk to you next week.
And Red Skeleton used to say that right at the end of the show.
Oh, he did. And God bless you, everyone.
I loved him.
I know it.